Do you ever feel like your history lessons are just dragging or ineffective? Hello, historians, and welcome back. I'm Cecilia Tamez, and I'm an educator support specialist. And I help history teachers feel confident and competent by providing resources, support, and solutions for teaching history. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 4 things you need to keep in mind as you're planning your history lessons so that you can create more intentional, relevant, and engaging lessons. So if you're excited for this video, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to turn on the notification bell because that is an easy and completely free way to show your support for the content that I share on this channel. So the first tip for creating better social studies lessons is to plan with the end in mind. Oftentimes what I've seen, what I've experienced is that we look at our standards and we ask ourselves, okay, how am I going to teach this? Instead, what we need to be asking ourselves is, okay, what do my students need to be able to do by the end of this lesson? So for example, if you're planning a lesson where your students are merely identifying historical figures, but they're expected to be able to share the contributions and explain the contributions of this figure, then your students are going to miss the mark. And the thing is, when we're not teaching in alignment to the expected learning outcomes, this is going to shake your students' confidence and, consequently yours too. And it's not that your students can't master the learning outcome. It's just that they're not practicing it or learning it in the way that it'll be assessed. So of course they're going to feel uncertain. And unfortunately, this could also rattle the trust that your students have towards you as their instructor, as a person that they trust to show them what they need to know. So you want to make sure that you always ask yourself, what is the learning target? And what skill will they need to know to demonstrate that mastery? All right, so what does planning with the end in mind actually look like? Well, it looks like knowing what questions you need to ask to get your students to master that learning outcome. It looks like planning in reverse with your assessment first and then the lesson to align with your assessment. It looks like constantly practicing that required skill with a correlating content piece. The next tip for creating better social studies lessons is to teach in the way that your students learn best. Now, this one's a little bit tricky because it requires 3 things. For you to know your students well, have a rock solid relationship with your class, and the final thing is being able to read your students' needs based on those imperceptible clues that they give us. Now, these clues are picked up via your social emotional intelligence or your experience, which means that if you're lacking in one area, then the other area better be sharp, sharp, sharp. Now, once we pick up on those imperceptible clues about our students' needs, about their required learning environment, about the emotional baggage that they might be bringing with them to class every day, then we can use that information to adjust our lessons to suit our learners. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a class that can't sit still, based on a true story, y'all. It may seem obvious to have them do seated work because, quote unquote, they might get out of hand. But the truth is that depriving them of movement will make them less likely to focus, which will lead to frustration on their part and your part and make them less likely to be able to retain the material. So in that example, to create a better history lesson, we would have to be tuning into our students' need for movement and designing lessons that play to those strengths and those interests. If not, it doesn't matter how fun you think a lesson will be or how intentionally you planned it, it's gonna flop. This is why this is not your typical, oh, do this, do that video. I'm telling y'all with toughness and tenderness that all the other strategies that you might learn in another video will not work until you got a solid handle on this. Now, in order to create better social studies lessons, you also have to have a system in place in order to ensure that you can repeat this process. So if you don't already know, this is exactly what I teach in my signature program, Teach Like an Influencer Academy. How to teach the way students learn and how to leverage your social emotional intelligence, not only to manage your class, but to know how to best engage and teach your learner. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, feel free to check out the link below in the description at the end of this video. Now let me ask you something. How awesome does it feel when you've been in this teaching rut and all of a sudden you strike gold with your class? Pretty amazing, right? You feel pumped, you feel revitalized, you feel energized because your students were receptive to your lesson. So they're getting it, you're digging it, and of course, this is going to boost your confidence and hopefully inspire you to create more lessons exactly like this. But if you don't have a plan or a system in place to repeat this lesson planning and delivery gold, you're gonna feel like Chumbawamba after they release their song Tub Thumping. You're gonna feel like a one-hit wonder. So hear me out on this one. I know it sounds overwhelming given all the things you're having to learn if you're a first-year teacher. If you're not, the tech alone is enough to drive anyone up a wall. But hear me out. Make time to document your process and the lessons that worked and how you planned it till you have things down to a science. Now, this one is very specific to history, but one of the best ways that you can create better history lessons is by not being afraid to ask questions that have no answer. Okay, so this goes without saying, but if you're not used to asking these types of questions, they're definitely worth taking the time to plan. And let me tell you why. I've said it in my prior videos, I've heard colleagues say it, I've said it myself, and that is students don't know how to think critically. Not because they can't, but because they haven't been shown where to start. Now, aside from the information overload that tech and social media provides, it's so imperative that we ask questions with no definite answers so that we can model to our students the process of reaching conclusions based on the evidence that's being explored in class. Not only this, but I feel like sometimes when we ask questions with no definite answers, we are presenting ourselves to our class as collaborative learners. That really humanizes us. We are inadvertently telling our students that we're not perfect, that there are no definite answers to every single thing, and that we don't possibly know the answer to every single thing, and that's okay. We are creating a safe space in our classroom in order for students to really be able to explore their thoughts and not feel like they're failing because they don't get a specific answer. We are basically making them comfortable with the idea of exploring different historical perspectives. Now, to plan these types of lessons, literally all you need to ask yourself is, what is the opposing viewpoint to this, to whatever it is you're teaching? How can I turn this narrative on its head? And what is the side of this historical event that's often not told? Now, I know that some of us are unfortunately stuck in a state where teaching uncomfortable history is frowned upon. This is exactly why these type of questions allow students to still explore history in its totality and reach conclusions based on cold, hard facts. And if you haven't watched my video, The Trouble with Teaching History, I highly recommend it. The interpretation of history will change as time goes on. And I feel like one of the reasons why so many people are struggling to be able to acknowledge new interpretations, more inclusive interpretations of history, is because they were taught that history was just a bunch of dates and moments in time and they don't change, and that's that. So the idea here is to give our students questions to ponder about all the different interpretations of an event over time. If you found this video helpful, be sure to check out my video, How Do You Teach History, which I'll go ahead and link in the description down below. And make sure you also sign up for my free Facebook group, The History Teachers Lounge. I want your success. I'm rooting for you. Until next time, class dismissed.